How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. We're backstage. I'm picking my nose.
Are you gonna be guest on my show?
So this is what we're gonna do. This is
Okay.
gonna give me a chance to start producing too. By the way, I thought about this.
Okay. Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna start it. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do whatever introduction, however long you want, and then you're gonna say, "And
Mm-hmm.
joining me now is Brandon,"
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll add myself in. But at first, it's just gonna be you cueing the screen.
Okay. Okay.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And
Yeah, I'm cool.
I kind of like this Penny interviewing the
Hmm?
Penny Talk Show.
The what?
You know, Penny's worth, Penny smart,
It's Penny in conversation with.
Penny blather.
No.
Just kidding. I love you. I'm trying to throw you off. Okay. I'm ready when you are.
Well, I'm always ready for you, Brandon.
I don't know about that one. All right, I'm gonna do this dramatic opening.
Oh, well, good evening. Well, it is evening in Central Europe, and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you find yourself on the planet today. And this is rather different because I know you could hear all the chat as we were backstage, so to speak. But today I am interviewing conscious medium Brandon Russ to find out a little bit more about the man. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to bring him into the picture soon. And you know me, I'm astrologer Penny Dix and sometimes psychotherapist. Um, well, what can I say? Because I think without further ado, I should just introduce conscious medium Brandon Russ.
That's what happens when you don't have anything else to say. You're just like, forget it. I'll just bring on the guest. I love it.
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, I'm
I'm
okay. How
so
are
I'm so
you?
happy to be on the inaugural show.
Yeah.
Finally, an inaugural thing, an inauguration that we can all get behind. And look at that. We already have more people than anyone else that had an inauguration in January. How are you? What just
Listen,
happened?
Brandon, I'm in charge today.
I know you are.
Mm,
So good
yes,
to be here.
you have to do as I say.
I agreed to come on to this. You didn't tell me it was going to be a power trip.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Well,
Listen, Brandon,
happy to
I
be here.
I just want to say to everyone, I just thought it would be really cool to actually interview Brandon because you always see us in a setting where we're talking about politics and astrology. And I'm doing a series on my channel called Penny in Conversation with. And today I'm in conversation with conscious medium Brandon Russ. So the first thing I'm going to ask you, Brandon,
Mm.
is there is a film coming out which is the story of your life. And I
Oh,
want you to tell me why I would want to watch it.
why you would want to watch it?
Why would I want to watch the story of your life?
Well, I think it would finally answer the question which helmet I was wearing on Johnny Finnegan's roof on the night that I jumped off in nothing but a Vikings helmet. And a lot of
Okay.
people don't know if it's a Vikings helmet or if it's a Vikings helmet. Either way, it's a riveting. It's got twists. It's got turns. It's got ins. It's got outs. It's got a lot. It's got a lot of what have yous. It also I think a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into being a good medium. To turn this into something somewhat serious, I don't think people really realize. I think people grift on talent alone a little bit when they have a gift,
Mhm.
and it's time consuming, and it has to consume you because you're on a mission. It's not just,
Mhm.
if you want to keep it, and a lot of people do this, they keep it kind of the parlor trick that it can be. But what it really is, when you get to the root of the matter, it's some really deep work. Some of it's with yourself, but some of it's with understanding how you have to deliver properly and making sure that you're prepared, to be put into situations that are going to help you. And it's a high emotional IQ that really needs to come along with that.
Mm.
And I
So
think that's a big deal.
can I ask you when you first realized that you could talk to spirit?
When?
Mm. When you
Tuesday.
first
It was it,
realized.
it was last Tuesday. No. I didn't differentiate. That's a super popular question that, not only would the movie answer, but also the book. Funny you should say that answer, is because it became kind of if you read the evolution of it, I was doing mediumship without it being called mediumship. I was connecting with spirit without calling it spirit work. And that, I think, is the sign of a truly gifted person when they have it and they don't know it. It's one thing when somebody says, and I can't tell you how many students I've had that are like this, and they have to find their way. And at first they're like, "Oh my gosh, I want to do what you do." And I laugh because I'm like, I don't even know how I do what I do.
Mm.
So the discovery of when it flipped the script, where I realized it was my purpose, was not a cool parlor trick. I was probably in my mid-20s when I was like, "Huh, this is a real thing. This
Mm.
isn't." I just had impact in a situation. I read a woman and her husband who had just dropped their son off at an Air Force base. They had joined the military post 9/11, and they had just gone through this exchange of like dropping their son off, and she's like calling on her father to protect him, and he came through, and I delivered it. It's a great story, but more importantly, it was the first time I like came out, and
Right.
I put my money where my mouth was, so to speak, or at least I spoke out of turn enough that either way I was willing to learn from it, because even how I approached it was that. And I think that's the other part. You learn as you go. If you do this the right way, you tweak it. You don't just throw an answer into the wind and say, "Oh gosh, well that's the answer." And I find a lot of mediumship like does that, where they're like, "Oh no, I know what I'm getting," and they're almost arrogant in their delivery because they don't think that they could be wrong.
Mm.
And they're not probably wrong. It's more of the perspective, and they put the perspective of other people, and it just seems to miss. So my evolution, and one of the things I'm grateful for, is that I've had some really cool teachers, and I frustrated all of them.
Mhm.
And I also kind of had to figure it out my own way. So it was lonely at times, but it was rewarding because that's the way it was supposed to go.
Mm. And don't you think that what is happening now with Pluto's move into Aquarius, and
Oh,
especially
Jesus.
when Uranus moves into Gemini, middle of this year, we will get a taste of it before it really
Oh,
fully moves in next year. But I think a lot more people are going to discover that they have the same talents and qualities. And I think it's going to be easier for them to connect with this side of
yeah.
ourselves, because I think the brain is going to start to open up, and we're going to start being able to use different areas of the brain that up until now, apart from with some people, like say yourself, have
Yeah.
been dormant. Does that resonate with you?
It certainly does, because of course we always know house placements always is always the differentiator, right? The house placement of, for me, with Pluto, is in my sixth house. So
Mm.
this is an activator for the greater good and dual serviceness.
Mm.
You look at the arc of what's going on societal, and you go back to 2012, and as much as the Mayan calendar, whether it was right or not, doesn't matter, but 2012 was a real significant time, because that's where planetary alignments are showing up that really give indicator of of the changes that are coming. And astrology as a predictor always kind of is situational,
Mm,
but for a species, for an earthling, what we're headed into are these remarkable revolts of like personal accountability. I mean, what we're learning now is that we're beginning to see that we can't rely on governments. We can't rely on standards and norms and that sort of thing because we've beaten it up.
mm,
We've gotten so polarizing in our extremism that there's no center road anymore. So we have to create our own inner peace. And there's a difference between being grounded and being centered. And I
mm,
think that we can learn how to be grounded in a heartbeat. You go, okay, serenity now. You can say something, whatever, and find your peace in the moment. But
mm,
being centered is knowing that you won't be in those situations anymore. Being centered is recognizing that you've worked through what works for you and know not to put yourself in those situations. And you can say you're avoiding it, but it's also wisdom.
mhm. Yeah.
It's that idea of wisdom. So I think we're getting a lot of empowered wisdom in how to apply it and how
Mm,
we're truly finding personal wisdom and how to apply it and personal accountability and personal just power. Our power base has changed. And I'm
yeah.
excited. I know it looks like chaos, but I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think that's right, and I like the way you sort of you described that, because I think what's happening is we're getting a different understanding of our personal power
Yeah,
through what is happening now. And I just want to say with everybody in the chat, if you have any questions you would like me to put to Brandon, please let me know in the chat and I will deliver, just in case. But
I'm so surprised. Yeah, that's the part I'm worried about.
I thought you might be. But
Yeah,
actually, with you with talking about mediumship and this personal power and the sense that collectively we are all opening up much more to these higher frequencies and
sure.
finding out that we can tune in and that it's almost becoming second place. I mean, I'm sure you are one of the many people that's heard about the telepathy tapes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the telepathy tapes are really something else. And I
And I
yeah.
haven't done a deep dive on it yet,
Mm,
but I'll say this. I think we're going to start discovering these parallels that have been going along with us for a
yeah.
long time. I really do. I mean, I mentioned I've done a deep dive with my class this week on the Schumann resonance,
I was
where
about to ask you
yeah,
about yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's all kind of all these things are kind of like these parallels that have been going on, and then when you go back, it has data, it has history, it has empirical information to it. And I think one of the challenges that we have in the spiritual piece of it, and I love the woo woo guys, I love it. However, there's a time to be practical and there's a time to be woo woo. When we're sitting around the fire and we're hitting the drum, let's be as woo woo as humanly possible. Let us release, let us bring in our guides, let us connect with our ancestors, let us do all those things. When we are in our cerebral cortex moment that I think we're really being brought to. I think we really are. I think the fake spiritualism is about to get a serious hit. Watch all of the crystal shops in your area close
Mhm.
in the next 12 months. It is
Wow.
happening already. And again, I'm
Mm,
not calling them fake, and I know there's good people in this. Don't
mm,
don't take it the wrong way.
mm,
But that's not what they're supposed to do with it. They're not supposed to open up the table at the temple, so to speak.
mhm.
What we're supposed to do is find our resonance with this to grow with it. And I have found that the Schumann resonance and
Can you just explain
yeah,
exactly what Schumann resonance is for those that don't know?
in a one line, it's basically the heartbeat of the earth. It is the frequency that the earth is giving out. A few
Mhm,
years ago, NASA was talking about, oh, this is what Jupiter sounds like, this is what Mars sounds like, and there's pitch frequencies basically. And the earth resonance, not resident, we're all
mm.
here though, resonance is is very much a frequency. It's a 7.83. There's a lot of symbolism in it. There's a 9, but it fluctuates. It actually goes up and it goes down depending upon, everything from solar flares to thunderstorms to ionospheric activity. Like there's so many things that go on with it. It's part of the reason why you are able to see the aurora borealis at times. It is part of the reason why you're, in different parts of the world. It is also part of the reason why when you sit and you speak and you calm yourself to a point of really bringing it down, you feel like you're connected to other things. And organizations like HeartMap are doing research and connecting how we rhythmically start to work with those frequencies so that then we calm and we're no longer in fight or flight. And with all of the chaos being created, this is a real opportunity, because what's happening is people are beginning to become self-reliant. We find out that our funding is being cut. We find out that we're invading, insert real estate mogul bullshit here, excuse my French, but all of that nonsense. And we just kind of sit there and go, oh, but I'm at peace. You can't take this. That's going to frustrate this counterculture thing going on in the chaos. And it's teaching us something. It's always teaching us something. And I will tell you, my readings have been very connective, very off the chart. You can still book with me at tbrandonruss.com.
And while we're on that point,
Yeah.
AL2 is asking Brandon that her birthday is on the 12th, on the full moon. And she says, what do you think she can expect? Or at least I think AL2 is a she. Maybe she's a he, or I don't know.
There's only two. There are only two. It is only male and female. And by the way, this is the quandary that we're in. Like when they came out and they're like, there's only male and female. Part of me is like, okay with this. And I'm going to tell you why. By the way, I think everybody deserves respect. I don't care what your plumbing is. I don't care what your identity is.
Yeah.
Let's respect it. By the way, I'm going to get to her prediction here in a second. Hold on a second. But when they were like, oh my gosh, there's only male and female, I started laughing. And I said, well, anybody that works in energy already knew that. When a gay man espouses feminine qualities, you go, oh, well,
she's just said, I'm a she.
I'm a she. Okay. All right. Well, way to identify. You're the one that brought it up, kid. But the reason why I'm bringing that up connected to it is I think we have to see our energetic value. And by the way, being at the 12th, the 12th of the month where you're 212, you're a 5 in the base, might get, you can be any one of the life paths. Having that state of Aquarian energy is the 10 of swords. And at first everybody sees the 10 of swords and they're like, oh my gosh, that's awful. It's like it's 10 swords in the person's back. What it is that you've been beaten up by the knowledge of experience over and over again. And you have all of these. So the swords represent the mind, the thought process. What you're carrying there is that they're sticking you in the back because they have become part of your identity. You are probably the type of person that you step into the world where you say, okay, I've been here, done that before. And as a fixed energy, you are probably going to walk into this and say, like, I need to change something here. So my experience with this is to tell you, do it in a way that people can respect you afterwards. It's kind of tough to get one line.
Full moon. It's a pretty powerful full moon next week. Because it's a T-square with Uranus to the moon and the sun.
Leo full moon, correct?
Leo full moon, yes.
Oh my gosh, I love astrology.
I want to ask Magical Mermaid what is meant by he's Pandoring.
Well, I do have a tendency, and by the way, Magical Mermaid, good to see you. I do have a tendency of opening up things that you can't put back in. Once you see them, you can't unsee them.
Okay.
And I think that's what she was referring to. And I did a lot of soul searching when all of this stuff came out. When Trump captured the election, because if you say the S word, then they go, ooh. Captured, like in Stratego, like, aha, I have the flag. He got the flag first, so to speak. But when that happened, I really looked at how he came into power. And part of it had to do with the energy that we were all giving it. and myself included. I was building a channel on, I can tell you the spikes that I got in watches were directly related with the T word, directly related. The algorithm loved it.
Mm.
And I started to realize that for 4 years, he was nothing. He was literally a pimple on the ass of humanity. And we made him something because we were so outraged by his criminality. We were so outraged and whatever. And basically, if you learn anything about the US court system, it is this simple. When somebody accuses you of something, just sit there and say nothing. And then deflect, 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 deflect. They will get so tired that they can't deal with it anymore. They'll be exhausted, or just criminal in and of itself. But his right to a fair trial was manipulated to a point where he stayed in the press. That's all he cared about. He wanted to stay in the consciousness. And it was a consciousness experiment. So for me, I want to move the needle to where I can affect the consciousness as well, which is why I'm really tailoring what I'm doing now and what I'm doing next into all of that, right?
And I mean, that actually links in as well with the astrology, with the Pluto
Yep.
energy in Aquarius, and Uranus moving direct now, and actually
Yep.
going to be in Gemini for a short while, because I think that, because once Uranus moves into Gemini and we have this connection with the higher mind and the thinking and the thought, and we've got Pluto and Aquarius, air signs, both,
Yep.
very powerful air signs. And we have some mutability from Uranus in Gemini, and obviously Pluto being fixed in a fixed sign needs a little bit of that Gemini flexibility, I think.
Yeah, I think Gemini energy is going to be really important moving forward, because it's not, and kudos to the Geminis out there and the Gemini risings and the Gemini moons and the Gemini Venuses, all that stuff. But when I talk about, Gemini energy, it is that source of duality that we can get back to, some things looking literal and some things looking gray. And one of the challenges that's going on right now is we're watching people treat things as a binary decision, as a binary solution. It is either this or that. It is either A or B. There is no C. There is no, A2, A5, B1, B2. There's none of that. And it's a very simplistic way of looking at it. Decision making and energy is a very complex thing. You cannot boil it down, which is why it's so tough to teach. We can teach math and we can teach history. We can rewrite history. We can tell you new ways to think of math. But it breaches on the idea that really complex challenges, really complex problems require multiple avenues of solution and a flexibility to get there. And we don't have it right now. Like we just don't. We have a very linear way of thinking. But this is going to break our linear way of thinking, so that then consciousness, which is multidimensional, which is multifaceted, and requires you on Earth in your 3D model. By the way, we're all 3D replications of ourselves. It is the idea that we can start to take these things to become malleable, to understand what it's going to take to go to the fourth dimension. Everything in Navajo tradition, and Navajo is the culmination of over 130 tribes. The Navajo completion of the nations together was the idea that we all at least have the same higher alternative purpose, which is going to the fourth dimension. And everything is in fours. You have the four directions, you have the four lineages, you have the four elements. Like, everything is based in four for the Navajo to understand how to elevate. And that dynamic has, I mean, you look at an ancient people that were here at the beginning, or at least carry forward the information enough from the start of the last age, we begin to understand that there's something here. There's something consistent with it. And also our DNA has spoken to it. So that's why we feel like we have to follow this awakening path. This is why we're stepping into it. The astrology speaks to it beautifully, and being able to embrace all 12 signs at its different appropriate time is really going to be the flex we need.
And how do you see the astrology kind of panning out for you? Do you ever look at your
Oh, I have some beautiful placements right now. So I'm going through Pluto's conjunct to my Jupiter.
Oh,
Pluto in transit.
okay.
Yeah, kind of a oh, all of a sudden he's entered the room. Remember those
Well,
old chats when it would say like Brandon has entered the room, like, my Pluto's conjunct with Jupiter,
in the house.
which is conjunct to my moon, which is an incredibly healing dynamic. I have some other
Mm,
aspects, connected with that, and dealing with my Lilith and the dark night of the soul, and going through all of those components where I just pull it apart. It's like, okay, now what? You get to that point, and especially where, like, you have major things like, your Uranus squared Uranus, you have your Pluto trines, you have your big kind of like outer planet celestial influences, your Jupiter
you've frozen.
returns. I'm heading
Hello?
for my second Saturn return here in 8 years. And
You froze.
oh yeah.
You froze.
Do we do a little freezing there? Well, we're back online. Um, but you have all of these big things, that affected me from, like, the mid 40s on, and I'm piecing it together. And for me, astrologically, I think this is a year that I really kind of put things together, where I talked a lot about being a leader and I didn't do it right. It
Hmm.
doesn't mean I was malicious about it, and it doesn't mean that I didn't have a level of benevolency, but I got it wrong because I was using different primers. Now I think I've gotten enough experience where my power is going to be coming through that sixth house, transition for me,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, to be of service and to empower others and make something
Mm.
great, which is, why I have, the More Than a Medium media channel launching and all that other good stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a
Why
good
don't you
time.
tell
What
us?
do you see?
Yeah. Tell us a bit about your new channel?
Well, I'm gonna have all my really cool friends there.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Pen- Penny's on board. I think she wants to do an interview
Oh, shh, shh,
podcast.
shh. We said we'd keep it private what we're going to do
Oh,
on the
I'm sorry.
channel.
Did I leak everywhere? All right.
What,
So
what what happens on the channel stays on the channel.
not really. I don't think you know how the internet works. Um, so one of the things that I really looked at was I really watched, and I want to thank everybody that's contributed to it, everybody that's made comments and shared and liked, subscribed, all that other great stuff,
Hmm.
because it gave me encouragement that I was on the right path. And I watched what people would comment after I was on. Now there's always the dunderheads that are like, "Oh, you look like an idiot," and you have derangement syndrome, like whatever. Unqualified people talking about unqualified things,
Mm.
and the part of it that I noticed was that, one, there are some really smart and intelligent people out there, like incredibly smart people. Number two, I was a beacon in that moment to say, it's going to be okay, guys.
Mm.
I did fall into a little bit of the trap, little mea culpa, and I've learned from this. I'm not going to do it again. People wanted to hear Donald Trump wasn't going to take office. People wanted to hear that. And I
Mm.
found it. You found it. A lot of us did, where we were just like, this dude's in trouble. He
Mm.
is. But the more, he's one of those people that, I call it the Sunday night blues.
Mm.
Like, this guy always has the Sunday night blues. He doesn't want to go to work on Monday because he's built up this entirely chasm labyrinth of a hell that he can't get out of. Right.
Mm.
Um, and to move it towards a greater plane, we have to create something that works on the consciousness for good. So
Mm.
why not have a series of voices that also have other products? Like, you have another channel, but let's have this be like a clearinghouse, a funnel, if you will. In marketing terms, it's a funnel, but why not create this really cool clearinghouse that you can find these ideas and opinions and kind of this light work of consciousness? I'm talking to a couple of people, one of them, and they are not normal walks of life, so to speak, but they're inspirational walks of life.
Yeah.
There's one person who's an artist who, yeah, I'm not going to call her call name, but you would know her from my channel because she's continuously contributing to it, just in comment and what have you. And we
Mm-hmm.
had a chance to talk, and she's this incredible creative. She has
Mm-hmm.
this great powerhouse of a marriage, and they're creatives together. And she's like, I think I want to do a podcast on doing creative stuff. You know, how do you get over that hump? How do you deal with your 9 to 5 and get there? And I go, perfect. I go, you're it. She goes, don't you need more than that? And I'm like, no, because it'll unfold. There's another person I'm talking to that is he runs Catholic schools in an archdiocese, and he wants to talk very real about what's happening to Catholicism in the United States. You know, not necessarily to save it, but so that then people have a safe place to talk about it. That's
Mm-hmm.
the kind of stuff I want on this channel. I want alternative conversations about stuff that people are really going through, because we tend to sugarcoat it and go like, oh yeah, I did the Catholic thing, oh yeah, I had that awakening, oh yeah, I pushed down my creative, you know. And then we have other people that are doctors, other people that are wellness directors, people that are approaching things, you know, like even your background, in your therapy line of work. That's what was always interesting to me. Your astrology is fantastic, but when you approach it from the psychoanalytical piece of it, you can really start to kind of like go, oh, this makes sense, because you're combining the woo woo with the scientific. And I think we have to do that more. I think we have to bridge that. By the way, I'm still all about throwing together a sound bath and singing Kumbaya. I still am. That's still a thing. You still have to make a logical leap from me walking into a room and then me connecting with your loved ones. I look like a crazy person until you make the connection and give me validation. There's still a little bit of that. We still have to play with our faith. We still have to play with the part that we have to believe that there's something more here than this. But we also have to get practical as well. So I want to have a lot of really great influencers that will just drop those wisdom nuggets of, it might just be one line. You've experienced this too.
Very,
But
very much, and I think also there's so much a need really for us to feel that we can have the freedom of speech, which on so many of these media platforms is just not there, which is difficult because you're kind
Mhm.
of restricted in certain areas of what you can say and what you can what you can talk about, how you
Well,
talk about it.
it's funny. I on my Facebook, and those of you that are friends with me on Facebook, I have a very loosey goosey, policy with that. Like, sure, I'm your friend. Um, but I started posting some things that were really controversial. Like, I definitely picked the left side of the aisle. Um, and that's the other thing. We're so extreme. Like, even the left got out of control. The
Mm,
right's out of control. Like, no more left and right. Let's figure out solutions. The solutions are almost always in the middle, right? But
mm,
I would post some really polarizing things. And what I noticed the most, first of all, I was really in awe with how many people were selecting to put their energy into this. They're frustrated. Like this is what I think is happening. They're frustrated and they're like, whatever this massive change can be, it's okay. Oh, he's a convicted this and he's a felon that. Whatever. So long as I get a solution out of it, which
mm,
is not very, it's self-serving, but it's not serving, the
mm,
greater good. But we're
mm,
willing to forget that when we're in fight or flight mode. So one
mm,
whole side is in fight or flight mode. And but I watch the villainous come out in people. I watch the oh yeah, well you're this. And I would subtly remind them that, their lack of compassion is noteworthy, because when they had lost a loved one and came to me for a reading,
mm,
I didn't judge them for the things that they did
mm,
in 1998.
mm,
And I would give them pause and I'd be like, listen, I'm on a seat where I don't judge,
mm.
or at least it's not healthy for me to judge.
Yeah,
You need to take my lead on this and say, somebody treated me with compassion, I should probably turn the favor, because that's my expectation of my energy.
yeah.
The immediate exchange of money is one thing, but the bigger piece of it is there's a level of kindness here to do this work properly. There's a level of conditioned response that should come out of it. I treated you with kindness, I expect you to pass it on. Whether it's holding the door open for somebody or, waving them on to merge when it's not necessarily, you know, exactly what should happen. But
Mm,
people's cruelty is coming to a head. we have to address that. There's an underlying thing here that needs a solution. It's not telling people what to do, it's showing them how to heal themselves.
Mm.
And people generally don't like that because we are a social creature. We just want to fit in. We
Mm.
just want to be with the masses, but we're being asked as we move into the age of Aquarius to become a truth-seeking people. This
Yeah.
is a very uncomfortable shift. Very uncomfortable,
Mm.
right?
But we've chosen to be here at this time, and I think that's significant, so that everyone, I think, who is incarnated on the planet
Mhm.
now, we knew what we were signing up for. And this year and next year are going to be, I think, pivotal in
Yeah.
what happens to us individually, the direction we go in, and what happens to us collectively. Does that resonate for you?
It totally resonates. And I mean, but I'm going to even give you an example here because I think this is, a lot of people kind of like, oh, they're goofy and they're flirty and they, banter and whatever. And the reason why this has a little bit of a different serious tone is because Penny and I have worked so much on our connection, whatever that is.
Mm.
And one of the things that I've noticed in your videos, and
Mhm.
this is you've been very open about this, the changes that you've had over the last 2.5 years that I've known you. Can you believe it's 2.5 years?
I think it's a bit longer. I think
Is
it's
it
actually
three?
longer.
Three and a
It's about 3.
Well, you don't
I
send me flowers
think we
anymore.
first did whiskey and bagels, but
You don't. Do you know that the original name of that was Whiskey and Scotch?
was it?
I found the first recording and we called it Whiskey and Scotch. Isn't that funny? And then you were just like, I'm more,
I think it
I'm
was
more.
21 or 22, 2021 or 22.
Yeah, it was because I was getting
Oh,
ready to go
same
to
as
Sedona.
Magical Mermaid saying 3 years. Okay.
Yeah,
So
and it was in your evolution. You did the things that I think we always try to do, and the more we cleaned up our act, the better it got. And when I say clean up our act, I mean personally. I mean, like we both personally went through this transition of like, oh, I can't be like this anymore. Insert whatever thing here.
well, I think
And
and I think, Brandon, that we learned a lot from each other, and I think we were what was needed in each other's lives at that time.
yeah,
And so there was a process that we had to go through of getting to know each other. And I mean, we had some incredible conversations off screen, as well as the. You didn't
no,
think I was going to go there, did you?
well, and you even said to me, you're like, I want to catch some of that magic. I want to learn how to kind of do that stuff in front of people where it's, where we talk about because we do deep dives into philosophies and how that works.
Mm,
But the part I want to say is like through that evolution, whether I learned it from you, you learned it from me, or we learned it together.
mm,
When you present videos, you tend to look at the personal as well as the overarching societal.
yeah,
So you go
yeah,
back and forth in each one of those.
yeah,
That is the only way, like to me, that's speaking in a language that people can understand.
mm,
People that walk into a conversation with us or watch any one of the videos, they get two levels of this. What is it in the greater good? What is it in the in the personal side of it? And you watch a lot of astrologers just talk about the bigger stuff. They want shock and awe and they want things that you can't control and I'll watch tomorrow and blah blah blah.
mm,
And then you have the other side of it where it's like, wow, that's really personal. That really helped me with what it is I need to do. And to be able to present both sides of it actually creates a teaching moment. And I said this to you from the beginning. The thing that's most impressive to me about you is how you really give a shit.
mm,
Like that's just a genuine quality that you can't write it down on a job description. You can't say, this, that, or the other thing. And the one thing that I've learned since the beginning of my adult, from the time that I held up my goldfish and I said, "Who's coming with me?" I made Jerry Maguire moment, and nobody came with me.
mm,
To now is that I have had this dance of authenticity, both for myself and the people around me. And
mm,
the only people that I truly let in, and, and,
mm,
and now I know what to look for. Once upon a time, I had to go through like a bunch of challenges, so to speak, or
mhm,
whatever.
mhm,
Now I recognize them quickly that who is authentic, who has
mm,
something to gain, who has something to lose. Like you have to have skin in the game.
mm,
And people that are authentic put themselves first in a unique way. And that is who is going to be on this channel. The
Mm,
people that are authentic in that very crystalline sort of way.
mm,
They'll have products to sell. You have readings and coaching and so forth and so like we all have a business behind it, but there's a level of authenticity that can be a driver. That was a part I missed for a long time.
mm.
I
Which,
just had willing participants, and I had people that were loyalist. By the way, stop me if you've heard this before. I
mm,
was surrounding myself with a bunch of loyalists, and nobody told me no. It was the
mm.
worst thing for me.
Oh God, it's the worst thing for anyone. It's the worst thing for anyone because
I'd say
you know,
president.
I, uh, I have this, yeah, I have this friend whom I do the other channel with, Sarah,
Yeah, oh,
and,
great stuff too.
this channel is called Channeling by Penny and Sarah,
Yeah,
and she
I
is connected to, like me, the blue light beings, and but
mhm.
she really is the most incredible psychic and streams, this channeling stuff.
And
But
and I'm gonna let you in on something, Penny. Are you ready?
okay,
And by the
okay.
way, this is in all due
Okay.
respect to Sarah. You saw in Sarah that she had parts of what she needed. You're helping her with the part that she's going to elevate with.
Yeah.
In other words, you're showing her this it factor that you and I showed each other. That's
Mm,
why I'm celebrating this. Somebody said to me in a sidebar, they were like, "Hey, did you catch Penny's show? What do you think? Like it's no you and her." Then I said, "It's not. It shouldn't be." I go, "But it's Penny."
mm,
And they totally got what I was saying because
mm.
because this is the part of it. This is the thing that makes people really frustrated that are gifted and talented. Are you ready?
Yeah.
When you don't carry that vibration I gave to you on, it's mind blowing because you're like, and again, part of this, it almost sounds completely in a Jungian conversation. It almost sounds like there is a crippling, debilitating self respect for yourself. But
Mhm.
if I'm sharing this with you, you better carry it on.
Mm,
You better carry it. It sounds very arrogant to say it like that, but we have to have pride and we have to have a standard to our energy that we've never had before because we have been working in a codependence um, matrix, which is known as the age of the Pisces.
mm,
Piscean age is all about the codependency. And by
mm,
the way, we got good at it. We got really good at it. All of our structures are to that. Now that we're bending it off, we think it's Armageddon because the government's saying we're not going to be there for you. It's a
mm,
gift in a way. So when we work with people, your expectation of Sarah is
mm,
going to be like, I'm showing you things. I hope you pick up on it. I hope you pick up this vibration. And by the way, you'll pick up things as well. But
mm.
I definitely see you being the leader in that kind of part of it because of the experiences that you've had. And I've already seen Sarah like step up her game. She's gotten better, hasn't she?
Oh gosh, yes, but I mean, she has really stepped outside her comfort zone big time.
You
And
just proved my point. You just proved my
yeah,
point, Penny.
and
That you're making her great.
mm, and the way and what I ask from her in return, in a sense, and I am following all your messages. Thank you, everybody. Andy, everybody, Jim, Jean LeBlanc, and somebody, Deborah. I think you said something about Brandon and I are best friends. Yes, we are best friends. He's my bestie in New York,
You see
and
how that evolution has happened right before your eyes?
yeah, but what I want to say about Sarah is she's my person I go to say, please tell me if my ego gets inflated. Please let me know if you think I'm overstepping the mark because I am so uh, hot on making sure I stay grounded and authentic. And I do not want to allow that kind of narcissistic inflation to creep in. And
Mm,
that's where checking the ego every second, every minute of every day is so important. And this is probably links in with what you've talked about sometimes, Brandon, with the sort of
yeah.
spiritual bypassing, where
Oh, sure.
people, they think they can get from A to P without doing all the bits in between.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, you know, I know you and I know, and obviously you know I have, and everybody knows this is me, that I've worked I've worked
I
on
just
this.
watch me get frozen on it. I just watch me like sit back and be like, and I will address the hair in a second too, but we'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
But and because I want to come in a minute, I'll stop it. I'll stop for a moment because I want to come in a minute because I want to do your solar return. But what I want to do is actually give to you this as a gift because you have been so supportive of me and helped me launch myself in the United States and Canada. And for that, as you know, I'm hugely grateful because the whiskey and bagels just did it, didn't it? It was just awesome what that show did.
Well, we have our sights on getting you to the U.S.
Oh, yeah,
for
well, yeah, okay.
that.
It's a long way.
Going to come together. There's going to be people that are going to step up, and I know you want to say something here, and I just want to comment on our old friend Andy, saying Sarah is perfect as she is as well. Exactly. There's an
It's
authenticity
amazing. Yeah.
that there's an authenticity that Sarah brings. Like she's got tools to work with. Believe you me, this wasn't like, oh, Penny's now making Sarah. That's not what that comment was. What it was is she also has a level of authenticity, and you'll notice this, that people with authenticity will want to work with other people with authenticity, even if they don't agree, even if they don't see it eye to eye. There's a level of it that they'll see in that person challenging them that they're good for them at the end of the day, right? Not let
Yeah.
me get rid of anybody that gets in my way. But talk to me about my how is this going to roll for me? I
Right.
get so
Well,
few
first
readings.
of all, what I decided I would do,
Mhm.
I like that from Jam LeBlanc. Do not believe in the news. Yeah, because I think we have to. I think we're all learning. I'll just add this quickly, but I think we're all learning to be more discerning and not believe everything we're told, and to
Mhm.
actually go to as many different news sources as possible so that we can see what sits right with us, what fits with our truth. Because
Yeah.
if we don't, then we just become the sheeple again, don't we?
Yeah, we can't replace the old things, and we can find pieces that worked. Don't get me wrong. Being part of a mutable energy that's going to be coming in, that remember that Gemini thing again?
Yes, yes.
The mutables tend to take what the fixed and then what the cardinal signs just throw together. The fixed is basically saying this is the old way, the cardinal is saying this is the new way, and then the mutable says this is the
Mhm.
right way.
Mm.
So this is kind of that energy. And
Yeah.
I think we're getting to a point where we need to start addressing solution-based thinking instead of
Mm.
overcorrection thinking.
Yeah. And I think, the internet and everything, all the social media platforms and all of this actually the pandemic did us a huge favor because we all had to get
Yeah.
onto the internet. We had to connect.
Yeah.
So actually that was a real positive, I think. It pushed a lot of the it widened the age group so that people who were of the older generations, the mature generations like myself, were forced to have to teach ourselves. Otherwise, we
Yeah.
were going to sit here very isolated. But what I'm going to do with your solar return is I'm actually going to look, first of all, at this year, which is nearly coming to a completion because your birthday is in March. And let's just see whether this year has panned out the way it looks in your solar return. And then we will have a little sneak peek into next year. How does
Oh, I'm game. Like this is your show.
that
I didn't even ask for any of this, but I love it. You know me. I'm always going to be a good sport about it.
Yeah.
I think what I'd really like to know is is the length of my hair going to be in the chart? That's the big question for me.
Hang on a minute. Well, this year's solar return, listen, I'm going to take you seriously.
Holy shit,
I'm
I love
doing
it.
my job.
And by the way, I'm going to grab my piece of celestite that I have floating around. Okay,
Okay.
let it
Okay.
rip. Let's go off
So
planet and meet there.
this year's the solar return that you're still
Mm,
within, which will take you up to March the 1st, this year,
2025, yeah.
you had an ascendant which was in Sagittarius.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, so I would say you had a lot more travel and a lot more learning and education,
A lot more Sagittarius.
a lot more Sagittarius.
Yeah,
And does that resonate?
sure. You have no idea. I mean, yes and yes and yes. The travel, part of this next step with the More Than a Medium media is basically a traveling road show that I'm not willing to. I'm not in a place where I could talk about it now because I'm getting some copyright stuff squared away. But
Hmm.
yes, I wasn't just in Austin by accident. I'm not going to be in Florida just by accident. I'm not just priming the land for Penny to land by accident.
I love Sonia Wong's comment. There should be a Facebook page just for Brandon's hair.
And by the way, there'll be plenty of
Growing.
detractors on that to be like, "Oh, you're feeding this arrogant prick." All right.
So listen, this is what was happening this last year. So you have this meant because you had a Sagittarius ascendant, you had a Gemini descendant. So relationships, there was a lot of talk, a lot of thinking, a lot of ideas, a lot of kind of mind-blowing kind of encounters and kind of reaping the harvest of what has been sown before.
Keep going.
Okay, that's all I'm saying about relationships.
Well, but it's also realizing that I can apply my experiences, whether they're mistakes or the things that I've never been willing to ask for.
Mhm.
The things that we tend to, when you're a light worker, you go back and forth between, the prideful, like, oh my gosh, I can do this and everybody should respect it, and then the I'm of service, I need to be meek and mild and take a back seat and not get my needs met.
Yeah.
And when you deal with whatever the trauma is, and by the way, trauma doesn't always necessarily need to be traumatic. It's just trauma as the defined word of like, you went through this. I did a lot of work on that over the last 2.5 years,
Mhm.
shit ton of work.
Mm.
And now I'm starting to realize that I'm unlocking the code of understanding what it meant for me. So
Mhm.
that's very accurate. And the fact that Gemini would be on the descendant
Yeah.
allows me to kind of recognize that, that I have to apply this to my closest self, that I have to embrace the light and the dark together. I have to embrace the duality, both as a teacher and as a person. So spot on. That's actually been my mantra this year.
And Sedna in Taurus in your sixth, I think, shows that this year has been a year where you have spent a lot of time, possibly behind the scenes, um, trying to empower women who have been victimized.
Spot on.
Okay. Okay. And at home, fourth house, which is Aries, the North Node, there is something about your destiny and thinking very hard about what you're meant to do, where you're meant to be, how things are going to unfold. I think there's been frustration. And with Chiron there's been a lot of healing that has needed to be looked at and unfolded and probably hasn't completed yet.
Yeah, peaceful understanding, and then also redefining, a turtle always has its home, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of defining how sovereign we tend to be, and when you how do you fulfill obligations without neglecting them, but yet feeling fulfilled at the same time?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
wouldn't trade any of it in,
Yeah.
not an ounce a second.
Yeah. And
Um,
and your mediumship has really taken off this last year. You've gone to extraordinary kind of highs, and with the moon in Scorpio in the 11th house, you really have been going out there and working with the people in general and helping them access parts of their soul and psyche that they're not able to do on their own. Does that make sense?
it does make sense because I started a year-long immersive class, and I have 30 something students in it, and it is a sacred space for us to figure it out, and the challenges that I give them both grows their intuition on the regular, but then also helps them find their purpose. So that's a pretty heady thing as a teacher for me. But it's
Mhm.
more importantly, I know I'm gonna put down. I'm not a betting person, but I'm gonna put my stock in the Akashics on this one. That class is meant to bring out the greater good in 30 something people so they can go out and make another 30 something people right. This is
Yeah.
how light spreads. This is
Yes,
how we change our consciousness. And I
absolutely.
know what my role is. I know what my role is. And I
Mm.
have such an internal peace with it now. And that Scorpio moon in the 11th house really speaks to that because how do you be outward and meek and mild at the same time? I mean, I have this gregarious personality that I tap into, and I
Oh, but
realized
fun
it was
with
a
that
shield.
because you've had fun with that because in the fifth house with this solar return, Uranus and Jupiter are there in Taurus. So you've known how to actually have fun as well this last year.
Really? Yeah, not only do I know what to do with that, but I'm using the muse, let's put it that way.
Okay.
By the way, I'm
Okay.
gonna have 5 publications out this year. I'm going to
Woo!
have a reissue of Funny You Should Say That with more stories in it. I have a book of poetry that
Mm-hmm.
I've been working on. And then I have the Art and Science of Tarot, and I also have an astrology kind of workbook that goes hand in hand with my classes, but it's good information for public. And then I also have a series that is going to start coming out called the Merkaba Chronicles. They're a series of short stories that I teach astrology in. But
Mm-hmm.
these stories are about fate and destiny and how we're all interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And that has really gotten a shot in the arm as I led from last year into next year, for sure. For sure.
Well, now let's have a look at what's coming.
Oh,
Okay. Well, this is very interesting, the solar return from March the 1st, 2025. So you think you finished doing the inner reflecting. It's
no, not at all.
fun.
No, not at all. But hit me, baby, one more time. Go easy on
Yeah,
me.
it's the revelations and the growth and the understanding of yourself on an inner level is going to kind of just explode in kind of huge ways. And what it's going to do is there'll be times when you feel very restricted and trapped because there aren't the people that you can somehow express this with. They're not going to get you. They're not going to get where you're coming from.
Mhm.
And at the same time, it's a process that you've got to go through, and out of this will come something extraordinarily beautiful and powerful, because it's almost like this is a year where you will be in the chrysalis, and then in 2026 you will be the dragonfly.
Keep going.
Okay.
What's my rising?
Aries.
It is Aries. So it's about initiating new things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
new
that
beginning,
makes a lot of sense to me.
new
Tons of
beginning.
sense to me. Tons
The
and tons
books
and tons of
and,
sense
and
to me.
the books and the writing and the
Yeah.
producing, all of that side, absolutely spot on. You've got Jupiter direct in Gemini in the third house. So
Jupiter
that
direct in Gemini in the 3rd
in the
house.
third house, that is going to really take off.
That's
That's
communications, everybody.
yeah, that is really going to take off.
Listen,
And
listen. Back to me, Penny. Back to me. I love my work.
I
I
know
love my work. I love my work, and sometimes I'm the greatest work.
um,
So, yeah, keep going.
so with finances, you've got Taurus. So, but Uranus is still here, but Uranus is direct. So there's going to be some more twists and turns and kind of a few shocks and some surprises that you're not ready for. Also, it looks like having to make make yourself available from a sort of it's like investing in another, investing in the the feminine principle that is so damaged. I don't know if that's making sense. I'm kind of just picking something up of you having to acquiesce, to know that you have to be there for this person, and maybe that is also Pluto conjunct your moon in
The third.
Aquarius that is going to be around,
Yeah.
because but the first house with Aries, there is your sense of self and your ability to value the lessons that you've learned and use it in a very constructive way, in a way that is healing, that is kind, that resonates with others on a level that you've not been able to achieve before. Does any of that kind of make sense?
So let me get this straight. Sagittarius is in my rising for my
No, no,
current
no, no,
year.
no, no, no.
Oh,
No, Aries is in your
uh,
rising. This is
I know, but go back to the year
the
before.
year before, Sagittarius.
And
Yes,
then it moves into the ninth house, correct?
yes, yes,
So what you're saying is that I'm talking about becoming a teacher and teaching others on how to do it while my platform explodes because I'm letting my inside out. I'm letting my internalization be the lessons that they are and who it's going to help.
yeah,
That perfect set of natural astrological house dimensions, with Aries being in the first. This also speaks to the idea that I'm going to make a lot of sense to people because it
yes.
follows a logic that doesn't turn. And I'm interpreting this a little bit myself, but I love this exercise. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
It's
And, and
beautiful.
and also, I think what's interesting is Pluto and Athena in the 11th house. So you've got this energy in Aquarius of you really will be connecting with vast groups of people and over the internet. It's not just small public gatherings. This is going to be over the internet connection. Big
coming
connection.
coming to a city near you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Penny, I think this is such a great gift for me because so much of that, what I've worked on, I'm going to tell you what I've worked on. I've worked on finding a safe space for me because I'm
Mm-hmm,
difficult. I'm
mm-hmm,
difficult. And I think that when you begin to find, I realize that I'm a lot of things to a lot of people and I have very unique relationships, very unique, right? Um, and it's a beautiful thing because I have, I'm going to share an example. So Sandy, who is a crystal person, she's announced me to many of my shows. She wrote the foreword of my book because she's been to more shows than anybody else at this
mm,
point, and she's seen me kind of do this, and she always took a piece for herself and be like, yeah, I heard my grandfather tonight, I heard this, and and I always wanted those things.
mm,
And we were going to leave last night, and we've had this on again off again snow stuff and ice, and it's 48 degrees one minute, it's -8 the next. It's awesome, by the way. And she goes out, she hits a patch of ice, she slips, and of course, I knew she was okay, first of
mm,
all, but I couldn't help but just start laughing and being like, Sandy, are you okay? Are you okay, Sandy? Sandy, are you okay? You've been hit by an icy parking lot. Like, I turned it into a joke. And that's something I could only do with her, where like another person might like if they slipped and fall, they would have been like, are you okay? Don't break a hip. Like I would be like, all worried about him. But in that
mm,
unique relationship, we can make fun of that. I need that kind of peace to it. Just like I need the peace with you, where I say, hey, I'm going through this. And you pull up a tray,
mm,
you're like, well, your Mars is up your ass. And I'm like, it's still called Uranus. Like we have that kind of relationship, right? And to
mhm,
me, it's that shift of like I'm starting to get good at being me. That's
mm,
the best part I can say. I wanna write a book about poetry, and it's like, and for all the reasons why I didn't do it, you sound like a mushy mush. You sound like a hatchet fancifer, and have a fish here. Okay, Jack Kerouac, what are you gonna do now? Like, you go through those swirly-durly levels of self-doubt, and then you don't do them, and then they sit aside, and then one day you're like, you know what? I just went through a little bit of hell for whatever that hell is. And then you say, if somebody makes fun of my poetry, if that's the worst thing that happens today, bring it. Bring it. I've gotten some of the most dastardly messages in the last couple of years that are just inhumane people. Like, they don't get it. They're not human. We're not the same species. Why am I paying attention to them? You know, lions sleep, a lion will sleep well at night, not caring about the opinion of the sheep. And that's that's something to embrace. I'm not bypassing it. I sat with it, but ultimately that's kind of the answer. Can I ask, where is my moon setting on my birthday, on my return?
It's in Aries on your ascendant, but in the 12th house.
Some bitch. Look at me go. I'm just gonna be a bleeding heart lover. That's just where it is. I'm just gonna love life. I'm just gonna bring it right out there.
Guess where Lilith is?
Do I want to know?
It's in Libra in your 7th house on the descendant.
For sure, right?
I did come to New York then, hadn't I?
Well, but it's also well, to me, what that says is that unique relationship, me realizing where I might have gone wrong in relationships before, I'm able to kind of right size them, and I'm also willing to kind of understand how that helps me, and how, cyclically I can say, oh, this is a mistake. I shouldn't do it this way. Let's do it this way. And then your needs and my needs will be satisfied. It's an interesting perspective. That Lilith would be in Libra in the 7th house at the time. Boy, that solar return stuff is a big deal, isn't it?
Well, it is actually. And finally, before I sort of wind things down, Mars is direct in Cancer in your 4th house. So I think that you're going to see some shifts in energy and changes, and a little bit more just where things have been stuck, things are going to feel a little bit more as if they're going to start moving.
Inevitable. Sure.
Okay. And Capricorn on the midheaven just says it's another year where you're going to really be absolutely working very, very hard. But you will succeed and you will get to where you need to get to.
Yeah. I appreciate that, because I think it's, having, Mars in, well, Mars would be in my 10th house then, right? So so this is interesting. So you're saying that Mars is in my 4th house.
Mars in your solar return for next year. Mars is in Cancer in your 4th house, but it's direct. So it's going direct. It's just turned direct because it goes direct at the end of February, and it's in your 4th house. So it feels like the energy shifting at home. The energy starts to shift where it's been a bit stuck and keep on going over the same old things again and again. It's going to shift. That's the easiest way I can describe it.
That 4th, 10th house was really that dichotomy, that duality of the 4th and the 10th house is really my first foray into astrology, because I started to realize that, when I was doing really well with work, home was getting neglected or needed attention, or when things were going really well at home, work was kind of on the fritz. And I started to realize that kind of duality. And it's a really, like, when you point out to people that are struggling, you'll be, and listen, some people will struggle all over the place, but by and large, a large percentage of people will have the emphasis of one of them doing well and the other one not. And that doesn't surprise me that my Mars would be, in other words, since I have a natal Mars in Capricorn, it's natally in opposition right now, but it naturally on my true natal chart, it's in my 5th house. So that is pulling on my creativity to work hard to get down to a process to do that. It showing up in my 10th house means that I'm putting that application to work. So I this is nothing but good news for me.
It's a positive. It's very positive. I mean, it feels a little bit like rebirth. It really does feel like you're going to have to sort of, you're coming out through the birth canal, and
Hello.
But you but you will come out.
You're
going to come out.
You have absolutely no idea what you just said, and it's
Oh,
spot on.
really? Oh, right. Okay.
No idea, because I feel a level of rebirth. I feel a level of
You've frozen again. You've frozen. Hello.
why. I think we all go through. Oh,
You
I'm sorry,
froze.
because I'm only talking about my deepest, darkest fantasies.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on trying to figure out why I am, like why I am the way I am, the way I'm
Hmm.
gregarious, the way that I at times just I have certain behaviors that you're just like, that's not cool. And then other behaviors that are like, that's so cool, it's awesome.
Hmm.
And figuring out your origin story is a very important thing.
Mm.
And over time, I'll be able to tell the whole story. But I'm just telling you, I'm in a very fantastic space. I'm in a very fantastic understanding of self. And I wouldn't trade this for all the frustrations that I've had, for all of the moments where I just wanted to hang it all up. I knew that there was the alternative of finding the greater good even in myself, and I'm finding it. And it's so, I just want you all to come swimming with me in it. It's awesome.
Wow. And as a final note, we've just come into the year of the wood snake. Do you know what you are?
The 12-year-old in me just went, I don't know, the better part of 8 inches. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm a
Um,
wood sheep.
no, what am I? I'm 1973. So what would that make me? I think it was
I don't
probably, I haven't done much. It's funny. I did do a level of Chinese astrology to learn that I am a seventh heaven earth angel.
Oh, wow. We've
And
got a
earth angel, not
got a
seventh
horse.
heaven angel.
I'm a sheep, a wood
You,
sheep,
you're a good sheep.
a wood sheep.
You're a wood sheep. All right.
Yeah.
What's the question I want to ask?
You've
You
got to
and
ask what your 1973, what is your Chinese animal or birth sign?
okay. I am an ox.
Oh, you're an ox. Wow.
And it runs from right before, yeah, so it runs from February 3rd to the 22nd of January. So yeah, so any of you oxens are in that.
Sonia Wong is an ox. We've got a horse out there, an ox.
Water ox, by the way.
You're a water ox. A water water ox.
I think I'm a water buffalo, is what I really am.
Right.
Did you just call me a
Right.
hippo?
No.
Like, what is going on here? I'm a water ox.
Listen,
Yes,
Brandon,
Tony, how are you?
I'm going to hold the boundaries really tight and firm here and say thank you so much for
Thank
being a
you.
guest on my show. Thank you to everybody for your comments. And there's been, oh, wood tiger there. Okay. And
Oh,
does
squirrel.
anyone have any final questions for Brandon before we let him go? Because you're going to have to be quick, because otherwise we're just going to close the show. So let's just check.
I think we have a very good. I think we have a very good vibration, and I think you and I also have to recognize that our celebrations of one another are sincere.
Yeah.
Our attempts to get better are pretty consistent. And when we acknowledge, when push comes to shove and you're like, okay, well, 3, 2, 1, we're on the air, that isn't a time of like, oh, I'll make this better right before. Like we really do work the clay. And that's what I love. I love the idea that this has grown and continues to grow even when we took a deep breath.
And we keep changing
And
it. We just keep evolving it.
I love it. So
But
I'm going to
despite,
go do a deep dive in my brain on the water ox because I didn't.
okay.
I think I knew it though. I do think I knew it. I just didn't. I haven't spent any time with it. So maybe I'm supposed to learn how to be a water buffalo or a water ox. I'll just make
Yeah.
up my own shit.
Which is interesting because it's water and you're Pisces, so you've got the water as well, And
So
I'm
what's the ox part, Penny?
uh-huh.
What's the ox part? Oh,
I
can I
think
leave you guys
you're
with this?
well hung.
Can I leave you with this?
Did you hear that? Did you hear
Can
what
I
I
do
just
can
said?
I do something?
Did you
Every
hear
time.
what I just said?
No, would you say I was incredibly good looking?
I
What?
think it means that you're well hung.
No, stop. Have you ever had oxtail soup? So, two things with this. Are you ready?
Okay.
You always want to do something unique, and I know you're wrapping it up, and I know you are 100% in charge, but I've never done this before, and I would like to do this with you.
Oh, okay. Go on.
Could I
Yeah.
read you one of the poems that I've written?
Oh, I'd love you to. Yes. Yes.
Cool. Thank you for giving me a platform for this.
Okay.
And by the way, I think that this is going to be, I'm a big Ray Carver fan. What we talk about when we talk about love and understanding how the mundane is all in. It's the little things that we do for each other, or the little disagreements is, in each one of these actions, we actually are communicating love in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And when I sat with that, I started to craft this, and it's not finished. I mean, I reserve the right to change. It's still got to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Need to be able to kind of, present it as a work in progress, but here we go.
Okay.
So, how the broken hearted heal. My heart has stopped 1,000 times by now, with all I've seen and felt. Was it all to help me understand why the Indian mothers mourn? To throw their bodies on a casket closed and their lovelorn children not return? Or is it a teacher's pride washed aside to see their project walk the stage? Or was it a full day in vain when a shooter took their sage? To throw their bodies on the casket closed and their love-mourn children not returned? Or is it the fireman's bravado, all blown back? To see all saved in the house today, or was it all a moment too late to find the buildings lost ablaze? Or a therapist's steady standard set to see someone feel normal? Or was it the two missed appointments and found they took the bridge instead? Or is it the nurse pressure bent, saving the heartbeat for another day? Or is it the drop down mask to say there was nothing to be done? Can it be the parent trap to think they will always be safe, big and strong, family on their own, but the identity crisis lost dreams more? The soldier's remorse, time to be brave, defend the intangibles, they won't be back today. Because of country, they fought alone, here and there, forgotten nowhere. My heart has stopped 1,001 times by now. I'm positive and they know. I see all the good in people, or am I fake, full of impossibilities? Losing sight, the blind man's eyes closed, sound to lose, the deaf to be silent more. The feels we feel and felt forever, dumb, numb feelings, nothing feels right. Is that what pain is? To see hurt and not be the cure? Is that what pain is? To be an author with no words? Or is it what love is? To feel without regret? Or is that what human is? Knowing that we don't have it right quite yet. What do you,
Wow.
what do you think?
Wow. Brandon, thank you. That's quite beautiful.
It has been a long time since I've read poetry in public. I've
Well
been
done.
practicing lately.
Well done. Well done. Brilliant. Well, on
Mhm.
that wow kind of finish,
Coming soon.
I want to say thank you so much
Thank
for
you, Penny.
being my guest, and to tell everyone that we're going to be back live on Valentine's night. We had to, didn't we?
We kind of did. We looked at our schedule and she goes, "What about the following Friday?" And I go, "The 14th." And she comes back with two hearts and she goes, "You know it." Thank you
So
guys for
we're
letting
going
me
to
share.
get up close and personal on the 14th, and discuss the astrology of the moment, because at the moment the astrology is just extraordinary, and what keeps unfolding on the planet. Well, I think we'll be talking a lot about what is unfolding on the planet, because that's like over 10 days away. Goodness knows what is going to happen between now.
I mean, listen, just inspect the the Department of Knuckle Dragging to be invented, and they're just idiots. It's not even, it's like, I'm beginning to feel insulted with how, like, we're and to watch people defend it, right, Penny? Anyways,
Brandon,
can I give you a hard tap? What's that, love?
We're finishing now.
Hard tap, everybody.
The show is ending. Thanks everyone for being here, and we really appreciate that you've been here with us through all of this, all of this last few years.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, Brandon. I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.